right. I see that is this thing on? Can you all hear me? Okay. I can hear myself a little bit. Okay. Here we go. Well, we'll wait a second to call this to order. I did want to note that we are without our chair at this meeting, so I would entertain a motion for someone to serve as the acting chair.
Is the microphone actually working?
Okay. I hear it. It's kind of quiet. Okay.
Testing. No, I don't.
Light doesn't work.
Testing.
Test.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's not on, right?
Good? All right, thanks. Thank you.
Mine works.
Okay, now that I've had practice, this should go more smoothly. Can you all hear me? Still no? It's got the green light. I don't know. Let me try one more. Is that on?
Mine's dead as well. Hello, check.
Testing 1, 2.
Test.
That one's working. Okay, greetings, everyone. Okay, so as I said a couple of times, we're without our chair tonight, so I would entertain a motion to nominate someone to serve as the acting chair.
Oh.
Yes,
I
Mr.
would
Fell.
nominate Lou to be acting chair tonight.
Okay, Mr. Fell nominates Mr. Hopkins. Any second? Ms. Sims? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that sounded like a unanimous aye. So congratulations, Mr. Hopkins. You are unanimously approved.
So you're going to bring me a microphone?
bring you this mic.
Does yours work? Oh, wait, maybe, does mine work now? Is this working? I wonder if the wireless is what's... Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have a roll call.
Mr. Andreessen. Bell.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here. Twen- 10th and August 24th.
I think we're back on. Okay. Thank
we're
you very
on.
much, Burema. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, let's go.
so can I get a motion?
I will move to approve the minutes
of the August 10th and the August 24th meeting.
Second.
We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, continued public hearings, we have none. Unfinished business, we have none. New public hearings, we have none. New business. Blank case 2478 S23. Request by Nolan Atkins on behalf of Fieldstone Investments LLC for preliminary and final plat approval for the Fieldstone subdivision number 1, generally located at the intersection of Stone Creek Boulevard and Colorado Avenue. So we start with the staff report.
And as Marcus is pulling that up, I'd like to remind commissioners that now that our mics are working, make sure that they're on before you talk. You're doing great, Lou. Just reminding everybody. Well, you can also leave them on if you're not, making noise into them in the interim. So I'll leave it up to you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Nolan Atkins, on behalf of Fieldstone Investments LLC, requests approval of preliminary and final plats for the Fieldstone number 1 subdivision. The applicant would like to subdivide a 3.57 acre tract of land into 14 lots to be developed for single-family homes. This subdivision would be part of the larger Stone Creek development west of Stone Creek Boulevard at the east end, at the intersection of Colorado Avenue and Stone Creek Boulevard. The tract is zoned R2 single-family residential and is undeveloped. According to the Urbana Land Development Code, preliminary and final plats may be submitted for concurrent approval. The Plan Commission must review the preliminary and final plats and make a recommendation to City Council for approval or denial of the final plat. Review and approval of the preliminary plat is strictly with Plan Commission. Staff recommends approval of both proposed preliminary and final plat. The staff report goes through the history of the preliminary and final plats that have been approved for the larger Stone Creek development starting back in 1997. The recently updated Land Development Code regulates preliminary, final, and concurrently submitted plats in 3 different sections. And each of those sections outlines what items need to be included on a preliminary or a final plat. Those items are laid out in the staff report. Staff have reviewed the content of the preliminary and final plats and find them providing the necessary information. Those plats are out for review by external agencies as well as internal agencies like the Urbana Fire Department and Urbana Public Works for a mandatory 10-day review period. That review period ends tomorrow. Any items that are found to be missing, like contact information for an applicant or an attorney or an engineer, or if one of the utility companies finds, hey, there is an easement that's not listed on the plat, those will be required to be revised and added or corrected on the final plat before the final plat would get recorded. Preliminary plats do not get recorded. City staff discussed the proposed plats with the applicant at a pre-application conference on July 24th, and at that time, the Administrative Review Committee determined that the proposed activity would be considered a major development. They would be required to apply for a major development, and that major development process is what is required through the Land Development Code, which includes that 10-day external review comment period. In the staff report, it goes through the discussion about land use, zoning regulation, and the comprehensive plan. This property, as I mentioned, is located in the larger Stone Creek subdivision, east of Prairie Winds subdivision. Surrounding the site are agricultural uses and residential uses. The proposed development of single-family homes would continue. The infill development of residential uses in southeastern Urbana and would be another step towards completion of the larger Stone Creek development. In general, it would be consistent with the existing single-family residential uses to the north, west, and farther to the south and east of the site. So here we have the location and land use, Exhibit A. The subject property is here in the red hatched area. To the east, you see Stone Creek development. There is an actual aerial that's underlaid here. This entire area to the east of Stone Creek is currently undeveloped. It has not been platted yet with recorded lots. A little further east, you see the golf course. To the west, you see Prairie Winds subdivision. That's the yellow and purple land use notations. And to the southwest is the new site of Solagradia Farms, where they're moving their community-supported agricultural operation, growing operation up to that site.
Quick question.
Sure.
The colors on this make no sense.
Yeah, the colors do not make sense, and that is a work in progress.
Okay, so can you tell me what is actually going on?
Sure, it appears that the vacant lots have been tagged as some land-based code system that you're familiar with, Lou, for
Okay, so the
planners.
difference between the purple and the yellow is vacant versus constructed.
Versus, yes, a house construction on
But
it.
all of the purple vacant lots are in approved final subdivision plats.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
staff are working with Regional Plan Commission to, correct the notations and the classifications of lots. Giving you a little better view about what actually is going on. So here are photographs, street view of the location. Top picture is looking southwest at Stone Creek and Colorado, at the north end of that strip of 13 lots. The lower picture is looking northwest towards the one single lot that is north of Colorado. And then the third picture is looking directly south towards that strip of 13 proposed lots. And the last fourth picture is looking directly north towards the one lot at the intersection. This is the zoning map. The subject property is this strip here of two parcels. It and the land to the east and the residential land to the west is zoned R2, single-family residential. And to the southwest, where Eagle Ridge subdivision is and Solagradia Farm is zoned R1. Land to the northwest is zoned CRE, conservation, recreation, education, and land to the far north and far south are zoned R4, low, medium density multifamily residential. So the property is currently undeveloped and is zoned R2. The proposed subdivision's lots are consistent with the R2 district's development requirements, including minimum lot area and frontage. The site is surrounded by R2 zoning district on 3 sides and R1 to the far southwest. The 2005 comprehensive plan shows this area as residential suburban pattern. That's this very light taupe color suburban pattern as part of the larger Stone Creek subdivision. The proposed subdivision is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use designation for the site. The staff report then goes on to talk about regulation by the Land Development Code and states that Section 11.2 of the zoning ordinance has the Plan Commission's powers and authorities to review subdivision plans and make recommendations to City Council as provided in Chapter 21 entitled Subdivisions and Other Land Developments of the Urbana City Code. That is the old title of the Land Development Code, which has since been revised. All of the items listed below in the staff report are provided for on both the preliminary plat and the final plat. General categories included subdivision layout and access, drainage, sidewalks, utilities, street trees. As far as deferrals, waivers, and variances, this proposed development is not requesting any waivers or deferrals or variances from either the zoning ordinance or the land development code. It's basically a by right parcel subdivision. It is coming to Plan Commission because that is the process required by the Land Development Code. The Land Development Code requires Plan Commission to review the preliminary plat, and if it finds it meets its requirements, it approves it. If the final plat is in general conformance with the approved preliminary plat, it can get forwarded directly on to City Council. Which is, we're bringing both plats to you tonight. Staff's recommendation is that both the preliminary plat be approved by Plan Commission and that Plan Commission recommend forwarding to the final plat to City Council with a recommendation to approve that as presented. And your options are to approve the preliminary plat and forward it approve the preliminary plat or deny the preliminary plat. And then for the final plat, to approve the final plat and forward it to the City Council with a recommendation to approve as presented, or deny the final plat and forward it to City Council with a recommendation of denial. Here is the final plat. We'll just go over some of the highlights it shows. So north is facing to the left, to make it more confusing for you. We have Stone Creek Boulevard running left to right. We have Colorado Avenue coming in from the bottom from the west. It shows Lot 101 to the north of Colorado Avenue and the 13 lots heading south. There is an existing stub to the south end of this strip of proposed lots, which aligns with East Mumford Drive. There is currently no plan by the city to extend East Mumford Drive through Solagradia Farms to connect to this, but we are requesting from the developer that they put in a reservation for a future right-of-way dedication. So for some reason, if Solagradia moves out and somebody wants to develop that land, a street could be put through. If we don't put in that reservation and we allow them to take out the stub, then we lose that opportunity in the future for connectivity. We show proposed easements and required yard setbacks, which meet the zoning ordinance. And it appears to include all of the required items that are required by the Land Development Code. It does show, for example, the multi-use path running down the median of Stone Creek Boulevard, which fulfills the sidewalk requirement. There are already street trees on this strip of land, so that fulfillment is, that requirement is fulfilled as well. That is really the end of my staff report. Mr. Nolan Atkins is here, the applicant, to answer questions if you have any questions for him, and I'm happy to answer questions myself. I will direct your attention to a letter of comment that we received yesterday from a subdivision HOA member. The summary of it, if you will, is they like the idea of the proposed subdivision. They would like to see the members, these lots be part of the existing homeowners association. And presumably, the covenants in that subdivision to be reflected in this subdivision so that everybody's held to the same level of standards. That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, questions for staff? So I've got some questions. There would have been at least a preliminary plat on the Stone Creek subdivision for these parts. Can you tell me whether this is consistent with or in any way different from that preliminary plat?
So that would have been a preliminary plat from 1997, and it would have expired. I do not,
I understand that,
I
but
do not
that is
know.
still information that people who are operating might have operated their expectations on.
Could you repeat
So-
that?
Part of the purpose of a preliminary plat is to let people know what they might expect to happen. So when people developed other parts of this or bought property or bought houses, they would have been able to look at that preliminary plat.
Right.
It may have even been, have gone through final plat, for all I know.
It did not.
It did not, okay. So it seems to me sort of relevant to know whether this constitutes any significant change from that preliminary plat.
From my review of the series of preliminary and final plats for this area, this proposed preliminary and final plat are generally similar to that with those lot sizes and frontages. Again, the streets were put in all at the same time.
Right.
So point taken, yes, somebody might have purchased land assuming that something that never got recorded would still essentially be what might happen in the future.
Okay. So Prairie Winds preliminary plat included more than what got developed at Prairie Winds? Let me put it differently. The Mumford connection, is the Mumford connection appear on any previous preliminary plat?
I don't know. So are we talking about, so here is,
It's easier to see on the previous slide, but
on this one?
no. One that, it just happens to be lighter in color so you
Oh.
can see it. You gotta shift up to the right. Up. Well, yeah, the other way, sorry.
The other up.
Yeah,
So to the
shift
what?
the image up to the,
No, the other way.
yeah,
South?
move the image up. Okay, so Mumford Drive is stubbed.
Right, oh, so Eagle
So
Ridge.
Mumford Drive presumably was stubbed based on a preliminary subdivision plat.
For Eagle
And the
Ridge
stub
subdivision.
on the Stone Creek preliminary plat was presumably put there based on a Prairie Winds
Correct,
preliminary plat.
not Prairie Winds, Eagle Ridge.
Eagle Ridge, thank you, sorry, that's
no,
what was
yeah,
confusing
yeah.
things. Sorry, my fault. So, question is was there a preliminary plat for the next parcel of Eagle Ridge that shows an alignment for Mumford Drive?
No, I can answer that definitively. There is an easement for an Urbana-Champaign sanitary district line that would be in line with what would
Would
be
be.
a right-of-way for a street.
Okay.
But they never put in a street right-of-way reservation, which is what we're doing, at least for this stub now.
Right, okay. So,
And I'll
that,
actually add on, Sola Gradia is doing a replat here because they're going to be transferring some land to neighbors. In that replat, we are requesting that they put in a future road right-of-way
okay.
dedication.
So now, this is what I'm trying to get at. I mean,
Yes.
this is what it's all about when we're doing subdivisions, right?
Right.
Okay, and that sewer was built? It's not just an easement?
No, I believe it's just an easement.
Okay.
Of-
And we don't have a subdivision diagram of sewers and infrastructure, right? Or do we?
Not at our disposal.
Even for this plat, don't we have one? We have to have one, right?
So,
Isn't that one of the things that's required for a final plat?
so here we have, on the preliminary plat. And I really do wish I could rotate these for you. But
Control Shift E.
Control Shift E.
That solid line is?
Oh, thank you, Kevin. No, we just keep going.
The dark line,
All right.
or the thin line?
So,
Oh, no, yeah, okay.
and actually, Mr. Atkins might be able to answer some of this. So we have 8-inch sanitary lines, 6-inch sanitary lines coming across Stone Creek Boulevard.
Okay, so this is served entirely from lines that are already in Stone Creek Boulevard?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
all of the infrastructure is already in place to serve these proposed 14 lots, other than connecting to that. We do show an 18-inch sanitary line here, so
You
it appears
do
that that
show it?
line is
Oh.
already running through.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to see, and I couldn't see it until you blew it up. Okay. So that sanitary line is there. Okay. And the lot line, it looks slightly different, but the lot line at the left, anyway, I think I've found everything I was looking for.
Okay.
Actually, I could ask a question. This wasn't given to us ahead of time. It wasn't on the, on what was sent out ahead of the meeting,
This is Exhibit D
but it wasn't attached.
in the packet.
Am I the only one who didn't get it? We didn't get the exhibits. I didn't get the exhibits, let me put it that way. So that may explain one of the reasons that I'm going into detail that seems obvious.
Yeah, we'll look into that and make sure that, it could be something on our end. We've been using the new packet software that we're still trying to work the kinks out on, so it's possible that
The
somehow it
exhibits
didn't
weren't
get
there.
attached.
So I
Okay.
just figured
I
I'd
apologize.
get around it.
We'll correct that for
by
next
doing what I'm
time.
doing now, sorry for the
No,
time.
that explains
Okay, I've got one other,
the staff report.
pardon?
You got the staff report. Okay,
I got the staff report, but none of the attachments, none of the exhibits.
I'm sorry.
So I've got one other question. When you gave us the options, you did not give us an option that we could recommend with conditions.
Correct.
In other words, what you said was different from the standard statement. And I'm wondering, was that on purpose or simply a slip?
This is a by right development, so I don't think there is an option for you to add requirements. but I will defer to.
Okay, so it was on purpose. That's what, I
Yes.
had a
Oh,
hunch
yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
but it's distinct, so I wanted to make sure.
And
I-
again, it's weird in that this is not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. That's why it's into the new business rather than new public hearing section. If they had, if you remember Stone Ridge 9 last year with Cat Trotter, that was a major development, but they had waiver requests. And
Okay.
so that brought it to the level of,
Okay,
you know.
so we're,
Lou, can you restate your question? Because I was looking up in our land development code. I'm going to read it verbatim, but I wanted to, were you asking if you can attach conditions? Was that the question? Or was
essentially,
it-
yes.
Okay, so the land development code states that the plan commission will either approve or approve with conditions or deny the preliminary plat and make a recommendation on major variance requests. That's irrelevant here.
Well, maybe not.
Well, since they're not requesting major variances, so that latter part of the sentence is not
But if
relevant.
the first part is independent of the latter part, that it
Right.
implies we can give conditions, so.
Does, yes, I concur.
So we're going to say that we can add conditions.
You can add conditions.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry for all the clarifications of details, but I think it matters. Okay, so I'm also in a little bit of a bind here that this is not actually a public hearing. But the procedures I have are for a public hearing, and we are going to use the same procedures, am I correct?
No, since it's a public hearing, I believe you should just discuss and then act on this.
Now, wait a minute, since it's not a public hearing?
Correct, because the public hearing has, it has people,
So we're
To make-
not going to go through, we're not going to let people speak to this?
I don't believe so. Hold on a second. Okay, I've been informed we will take public comment. So yes.
Okay.
One staff question, it's easy.
Oh, okay, we got one more staff question.
I think
staff.
easy staff question, I think this is on. What's the proposed right-of-way for Mumford? It looks less than 66 feet? It's not, you just have to guess from there.
So not all of the proposed right-of-way would be in this property. Part of it would come from the land to the south.
Yeah, but I assume the stub is theoretically in the center of the right-of-way, or not?
So,
The stub would be in the center of the right-of-way.
But we're going to assume it's going to be a 60 or 66-foot right-of-way? Okay.
and is that what Colorado is? Is Colorado 66?
Let's see. 66.
Yeah, okay. So
Actually, 60,
the heading
here.
lines are just.
66 at the north, at the east end.
Yeah,
Staff
okay.
question. Lot 101, on the east and west sides, the three sides that show the dashed lines, that's a setback line or an easement
No,
line?
those are the easement lines. This particular drawing does not show the setback lines well. Sometimes they overlap with the easement lines. Other times, that is something we're working on with the developer. For example, the rear lot line is, required yard is 10 feet, and it appears that these easements are 15 feet. And that is a comment that's going to be coming from city surveyor Dan Rothermel to say
That's for the storm sewer, I assume?
the 15-foot easement, yes.
Okay, well, the same reason, the east and west sides, both sides are for, sanitary on east and the, okay,
Storm on the
previously we've had,
west. And there's also fiber optic, I think, running on the
Okay,
west
just
side.
out of curiosity, previously, well, I guess the 8-inch storm sewer manhole isn't on the corner of the property, isn't on the pin, that's probably why. Typically, we have a 10-foot offset from a sanitary or storm sewer.
We would defer to whatever's listed in the land development code.
So if this is the lot line, it can't be.
That's a lot line.
Yeah,
So the easement on this side is actually 20 feet.
yeah, okay, that's what I mean. So these are pins, they're not. Interesting. Pins are-
Oh,
That's
the
the
white
end of our
dots
plat.
are property
Right, that's
corner
what that is.
pins.
That's the end of our plat.
Okay. Okay, so other questions? All right, so we're going to have a somewhat informal or unconventional procedure here, but I'm going to try to imitate the best I can to have public input. So what I'm going to do is ask the petitioner to outline or provide any information they wish to provide. Then I'll allow anyone from the public to speak to the case. Then we will close the public input, discuss, and act. So that's the procedure. Did the petitioner want to say anything?
If you could sign in and sit at the table and then make sure that that mic's on.
Yes.
Testing. Thank you for your time. I'm Nolan Atkins. So I'd like to just say a couple words about what we're hoping to do here. Essentially, what we're doing is following what our best information from the initial preliminary plat was put down at the beginning of Stone Creek subdivision. So we followed those lot lines. They're all 83 feet wide, which was the original plan. We expect to use the Stone Creek subdivision covenants as our guide for our future covenants. That would mean we have light posts, identical setbacks, similar architectural requirements. I didn't have the opportunity to review the letter sent by the homeowners association, so I'm not aware of how that process would go about if we were to ask to join the homeowners association. But essentially, it is our goal for this area to look almost identical to the rest of the subdivision and keep everything harmonious.
Okay, any further questions? Questions for the petitioner?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone in the audience wish to speak to this case? Come forward and. Sit and sign in. You count.
Terrific. All right, I'm Tom Roth. I sent the letter in. I am the president of Stone Creek Homeowners Association. As I said in my letter, we've been, for the last 3.5 years, upholding the conditions of the subdivision that the Atkins family started when they began developing this 20-plus years ago. We welcome the additional lots, as nearly all the lots that are out there now have been sold. We feel just for the consistency to benefit both the homeowners that will be on these lots as well as the homeowners that are in the existing lots of the subdivision, it makes the most sense just to keep these lots as I believe they were initially intended to be part of Stone Creek subdivision to be part of Stone Creek Homeowners Association and comply as all the lots along Stone Creek Boulevard do comply with the covenants that are in place now. If you trace Stone Creek Boulevard up and around, you get to the east side of the subdivision, and the lots that are actually in Water's Edge subdivision, they're not in Stone Creek, but the lots there that face Stone Creek Boulevard pay into our association, just as anyone else does. They follow the covenants, the guidelines, the bylaws, and we feel that makes the most sense with these lots as well.
Questions? So I have a question.
Yes.
How is the homeowners association defined in its bylaws? That is, what constitutes membership?
That's a great question. The Stone Creek covenants and bylaws were put together by the Atkins family long before I lived out there. At the time that the golf course was being turned over to the university, the homeowner association was in the process of taking over the homeowners, the neighborhood was in the process of taking that over. So we changed the bylaws slightly, but we deem it as anyone that lives inside of Stone Creek subdivision. And if you look at the initial plat, as I believe Nolan indicated, these lots were originally going to be part of it as it developed, and certainly at this point it has. So it was always at least my expectation that these lots would be developed into single family. To your question earlier, sir, what would the neighborhood have expected? This, exactly this. That at some point when the other lots is sold out, it would make sense to develop these into more homes.
So the homeowners association is I'm not sure what word I want to use, is for the most part taking on the covenants that were in the subdivision as originally developed by Atkins. And the homeowners association is continuing and fulfilling the role of being responsible for those covenants,
Correct.
which
Correct.
prior to the donation, Atkins
Yes.
was still responsible for.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, wait.
I'm sorry. So my question, and I'm not sure if it's within our purview, so that's why I was sort of, my question, and I'm not sure if it was within our purview, but I do wonder, so when I think about covenants and homeowners associations and one of our charges, as a part of the city of Urbana is to make sure that there are always equity principles at stake. I would be curious to know how that process has evolved over time to take in some of the more inclusive, equitable practices that 30 years ago weren't built into those kind of covenants. So I don't know how to ask that question in a more delicate way, but there's a lot's been talked about around restrictive covenants and all of those other things that don't promote equity, and I would just wonder what that process of keeping it inclusive would be.
I think the best answer that I could give to you now, ma'am, would be that if we have someone that purchases a lot, lots are bought and sold without, there's no subdivision approval or disapproval for someone buying a lot. The approval that we go through to approve plans is done strictly on the plans. So there's no view of, there's no come in and interview, there's no opportunity for us to have, although as I say that, I'm recognizing that there's always an opportunity for someone that wants to do that, so I don't want to be completely blind to the question, but it's not a process by which we say, well, we like the plans, but we don't like the person, so therefore it doesn't become part of it. The plans are submitted via email, all the meetings. So as the president of the HOA, I sit on the architecture committee. I'm a non-voting member unless one of the members is no longer there, so I see all the plans that come through. We have yet to have one that is done face-to-face and in person. It's emailed back and forth. We look at the plans. We go over the covenant guidelines based on the neighborhood that is in. When the subdivision was originally developed, and to your question on the covenants, it was originally done with, I believe, 5 different homeowners associations, actually, and the boulevard was its own. If I'm wrong on that, Todd can probably correct me, but we put all those together. We put them all as a single set of covenants, but the individual neighborhoods then, these lots, for example, would most likely be in the Highlands, which are the lots most directly north and south of them on Stone Creek Boulevard. But I digress, but we look at it based on what's the home type, size, construction, and does it fit into the other neighborhoods that meet the minimum square footage, materials, all the other items that we have out there. I can tell you that with the exception of the people that I know who have built a home out there, and in those cases I abstain from voting on it regardless, I don't know any of them until they move in. I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse about it, but that's really about an honest answer as I have, so.
I got
that.
On now?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand this. So, and Mr. Atkins can probably help here. My understanding is that as originally the Atkins development, Stone Creek development, there were covenants in place that all the homeowners had to adhere to. When Atkins donates this property to the city, covenants vanish, essentially. And so you've now developed your new covenants?
No,
Well,
no,
they're in- so-
actually not. The 2 items actually happened at the same time, but they were, largely independent of one another.
Okay, well,
We were in the
covenant-
process of, there was a turnover that was in place. It was, I believe, 20 years or 60% of the lots being sold. At that point in time, the plan had always been for the Atkins group to turn over to the neighborhood. And that time frame had expired, but the lot count hadn't hit yet, but we began that move anyway.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes better
And
sense.
so I sat on the
All right.
steering committee that started that out, and then, if any of you are familiar with how homeowner association works, once you're in, it's like the mafia. You can't get back out of it. So I will be president for life, I think. But so those things happen independently, but we took the existing covenants. The major change that happened was instead of having 5 different covenants for each of those different neighborhoods, we combined them into a single set of covenants. And the biggest differentiation then that we laid out inside of those covenants were the 5 different neighborhoods relative to what the home type needed to be in each of those.
Okay. But
Whereas-
the only reason these particular lots are not included in the covenants is because they weren't developed in time and it expired, right?
Correct.
Okay. That clears it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Okay, so I think we close the public input and discuss, and maybe take action.
I'm just not sure,
Forgive me, but I honestly have no idea what role the Plan Commission has in enforcing covenants on a subdivision.
I would say that you don't have a role.
Okay, that's, thank you.
Anybody have? Okay,
I make a motion that we move plan case, plan case number 2478-S-23. Do we have to approve the preliminary plat first?
I don't know. Are you voting to approve?
I'm moving to approve
one case.
preliminary and final plat, and forward them to city council with a recommendation of approval,
Yeah.
sort of.
So can I restate, you would move to approve the preliminary plat and recommend approval of the final plat to city council?
Correct.
All right, thanks.
Without conditions.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Ms. Sims?
Yes.
Ms. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Andreessen?
Yes.
Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Okay, that will go to the committee of the whole on, what month is it? September 18th. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience want to speak to any issue to the Plan Commission as public input? This is what comes at the end of our standard meeting. Staff report?
Sorry. I don't have a staff report. I would just, I would request that the plan commissioners please keep an eye out for our quorum call emails and respond to them in a somewhat prompt manner. Thank you.
Okay, we have no study session.
I'll also add that if Terry sends you a copy of a legal ad for a case that's coming, that ad will note in there when the meeting will be happening. So you can also put that date on your calendar, even before you get a quorum call.
Okay, so we are adjourned.
Adjourned at 7:53. Thank you.
Messy.
That is a way to put it.
That's my project. I solved the R7 problem.
So is it okay to ask what would the conditions have been?
Well, the homeowners association thing is